I got to tell you a little secret here. If you'll read the NIV, that says 5 bags of gold. If you read the King James, it says talents. So which one is right? Kind of technically all of them. So when you think of a talent, what do you think of besides America's Got Talent, or let's be honest, doesn't have talent? What exactly is a talent? A talent is not like, hey, I can do this thing really well. A talent was a weight. So when they said, hey, he gave somebody 5 talents, talents was a measurement of weight. Now, it depends on the culture you came from, how much a talent weighed. So it could be anything from probably about 50 pounds, 60 pounds, to 130 pounds. And a talent could have been a talent of gold, a talent of silver, a talent of bronze. It varied from place to place. And so we really don't know how much this was. But scholars guess, if you had 75 pounds of gold or silver, that sounds like a very small amount of gold. I would never want that amount. 75 pounds of gold is approximately worth $1.25 million. I don't know why you would want that at all. But think about it. So if this guy didn't show up with his cart that day, what was he going to do with 5 75 plus pounds of something, gold or silver? And could you imagine how generous this is? Imagine you walked into your boss's office, and you guys know gold bars are about 20 pounds. And on your boss's desk are all these gold bars. And he goes, I'm getting ready to go on vacation. And I think you've been doing a really good job. I want you to take care of these gold bars while I'm gone. Of course, you haven't looked at your boss the whole time because you're too busy staring at the gold bars like, Oh, you're leaving. Oh, that's mine. Oh, great. That's not going to fit in my pockets. It's weight. A talent is weight. And so could you imagine the servant's delight? Because the other idea is that this is 15 to 20 years worth of labor. That's a lot of money. That's a lot. So when this guy gives it to his servants, he's not just going, well, here's $20. Here's 5 shares of stock. He's giving them a lot. It's worth a lot. It means a lot. And he begins to divide it up based on this one word, their ability. Everybody has financial abilities. Why? You go to school, you earn a degree that gives you the financial ability to work a certain job. You go to a trade school, you learn how to be a plumber, you learn how to be an electrician, you learn how to be a carpenter. You do those things so that you have the ability to earn money. And guess what? Everybody is given the ability to earn money. We all have gifts, we all have talents that give us the ability to earn money. It's amazing. It's amazing, but at the same time, let's be perfectly honest. Gifts and talents aren't valued equally, right? It's like when we watched NFL players complain about standing or kneeling while they're getting millions of dollars to stand or kneel. And there's some family in the stands who paid their ticket and were going, they worked really hard to be able to go to this game to watch these overpriced babies make a social stance. Man, I can't believe I spent my money to watch this. Guess what? We value entertainment. Why do you think movies used to be like $3 and now it's 10? Why do you think we talk about, oh, I can't believe they're making millions of dollars to do that? Look, if I were the Kardashians and got paid millions of dollars to do that, I would too, okay? Let's be perfectly honest. Not everything is valued the same. why we have police officers, we have soldiers, we have firefighters, we have teachers, we have all these people who do very important things that make our country run, and they don't get paid millions of dollars. Why? I don't remember the last time somebody was like, man, that first grade teacher is doing such a great job. I'm going to pay $25 to go watch her teach. Whew! All right, principal, I am in. Let me watch that teacher do her thing. No. We like the entertainment. But remember, entertainment and everything else changes over time. Remember back in the days of the gladiators, they would watch them entertain. They weren't paid millions of dollars. They were fighting for their freedom. It changes. Right now, it's entertainment. Oh, it's also this wonderful thing called innovation. Yeah, I'm sure the guys and the ladies who work on the iPhones, who create the new technology, and their bosses, let's be more important, their bosses, they don't make hardly anything. Right, that's why CEOs are making millions of dollars and the employees aren't. See, all of our jobs are valued differently. But we all have the financial ability to do something. We all have gifts, we all have talent. But here's the problem. Could you imagine being there with this man who is giving away these talents, and he has this ginormous amount of silver here, this moderate amount of silver here, and like this small amount of silver. And by the way, the small amount, okay, still 75 pounds. That's still quite a bit. There's some cultures that a talent was equal to the weight of a man. Back then, they were much smaller, don't worry. About 130 pounds. Could you imagine that if they were like, hey, I know that I'm not giving you very much. It's just your weight in silver. No big deal. Yeah, that small amount there. But could you imagine being the guy at the end? And he's going, I work just as hard as them. If you're dividing this out into abilities, like, I got some, you just haven't seen them yet. And then the guy in the middle is like, at least I'm not that guy. But man, I wish I was that guy. And the guy at the end, he's like, yeah, look at mine, look at theirs. Yeah, boss likes me. But it was divided based on their abilities. But Scripture doesn't tell us what those abilities were. But apparently whatever his ability was much more valuable than this one, and this one was much more valuable than this one. But guess what? The man still gave it to all three. So sometimes we talk about our finances, and look, I all wish that we were millionaires, but just remember, if we were all millionaires, that the price of everything would have to rise up to that level. I would love to pay $100,000 for a loaf of bread. Yes, because that's what we're all making. No. The truth is, it's not fair. But it doesn't negate your ability to earn money. See, because when we come to blueprints, we're looking at life and we're going, but it's not fair. If it's not fair, then do something about it, because that's the other part of financial ability. You have been given gifts. You have been given talents. Go get a master's degree. Go to college. Go learn a trade. Go do something. If you are so frustrated with where you are in your financial ability, do something about it. Because that's what happens next. In Matthew 25, continuing with verse 16, it says, the servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earn even more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, since we are talking like 75 pounds of precious metal here, could you imagine digging that hole? I'm sorry. You know, like every time I've listened to this story and I thought like bag, I'm thinking like bag. That's not too much to hide. 75 pounds, a little bit bigger, and you have to walk on it all the time. Like, what is this guy thinking? But the problem was this. once you have ability, this is where everything changes. All of us have ability. We are all equal in that. But then there's this thing called financial faithfulness. What you are given, because it's not yours in the first place, what are you doing with it? What is so important? Look at what these first two guys did. The servant who received the 5 bags went to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags also went to work and earned 2 more. And the third guy digs a hole. And we go, well, I just don't get it. I have the same skills and ability to do something. Are you being faithful in it? Look, we'll just pick on the NFL because I already started, and my team lost last week, so I can do whatever I want. You take all these guys. What's the difference between one of them being a starter and one of them not? It's not always talent. Are they putting in the work every single day to take the talent they have to increase it? Because if they don't, guess what? They wash out. It doesn't matter what Heisman Trophy winner they are. It doesn't matter what awards they got in college. Welcome to the big leagues. You're at a place, people are paying money to watch you play a game. Look, I do not pay teenagers to watch them play dodgeball. But yet, here we are. Billions of dollars. And this one complains that he's not getting the playing time. And what does that rookie think he can do? Just come in here and take my job? He worked harder than you. He sure did. And that's how he got your job. He was faithful with what he was given. That's what begins to make the difference. See, a lot of times we get so frustrated with where we are financially that we can't make a blueprint for anything because what we're earning, we're so frustrated with what we earn that we begin to do a little less of a job. And, well, I don't think the boss likes me anymore, so that's not as important either. You know, I just got passed over for a raise. I can slack off a little bit. I'm still just as good as everybody else. This is not a question of talent. This is a question of faithfulness. When it comes to God, when it comes to our finances, it is not a question of how much you earn. It is not a question of how much is in your bank account. It's not a question of how much you have in stock. It is not a question of how much. It's not even a question of your ability. We all know plenty of people who have great and fantastic talents and abilities to do things that aren't being successful at all. The question is, are we being faithful what has been given to us? You see, God has given us what we have. Now, granted, some of us feel like that's not fair. I get it. It's not fair that a person earns more than you. There. So what are you going to do with what you've been given? Make the excuse, oh, well, since I'm not making as much as so-and-so, I'm not going to do as good of a job? Well, that's how you make less than what you're making now. It's called zero. What does it mean to be financially faithful? It starts off with these 4 areas. If you want to experience what it means to be faithful, the first area you need to be faithful in is tithing. I know. Rob, we spent 6 weeks talking about money last fall, and you're going to talk about it again. Well, I'm not really talking about that you need to tithe, because that's a given, because the Bible says so. Well, what I'm talking about is, are you being faithful with giving it? I know. It's much easier when you have X amount of dollars, and you have this, and you have that, and you don't have any excuses as to why you can do that. But the truth is, if you're not faithful to God in the area of finances, where else are you not being faithful to God? It's simple. I don't want to debate net or gross income. That's between you and God. I don't want to debate whether you text it first thing Sunday morning, or are you being faithful to give 10% to God? That's the question. Nobody here in the church office goes, by the way, could you please submit your W-2 for this year? We want to make sure you're tithing the appropriate amount. You know why? That's between you and God. If you're not being faithful with God, well, don't expect your finances to go super well. I'm just saying. Then there's provision. Please pay your bills. You like electricity. You like having a place to stay. You like food. These are all bills you should pay. You like to be able to wear clothes. I like for everybody to wear clothes. I'm just going to be perfectly honest. This is the second part. So after you've given to God, take care of whatever you need. Not want, need. Two totally different things. What does it say in the Lord's Prayer? Our Father who art in heaven, we give God glory and praise first, and then we say, give us today our daily bread. Okay? If you don't give it to him first, it's kind of hard to fill the rest of them. I know, finances. They stink. Then there's this next part. Offerings. Now, here's where we say bring in the tithes and offerings, and a lot of times we'll say this is the offering prayer. Offerings are this. It's other opportunities to give to God. Okay, super simple. Maybe that's missions for you. Some of you are faithful in Faith Promise. That's why we call it Faith Promise. No, anyway. Some of you are faithful to the building fund, which we appreciate. Some of you are faithful to certain ministries in the church. You're faithful, but that's your offering. You're offering that to God. These are other opportunities to give as God directs you. Now, some of you give to other organizations, and that is totally not sinful. You know what? There are organizations that come along in our lives that bless us, that help us along the way. And you know what we do? We in turn bless them. Maybe you guys didn't see the paper this week because I know how many of you read the newspaper. Probably not a lot. Did you know that our food pantry was in the newspaper again? Again? Why? Because that's one of the areas as a church we have not just been faithful to give, but we have people who are faithful to serve. And God continues to open up avenues to be able to remind us how important these ministries are as we are faithful. Which, by the way, they only served like 57 families this week, and 17 of them were new. There's needs out there. But those are our offerings. These are other opportunities to give. And then there's the rest of it. Now, you know what's really nice is when there is a rest of it. I get it. Like, you're like, finally, after I've given to God, after I've paid the bills, there's still something left over. Ask God what you need to do with that. I would advise saving. Saving is always a good thing. You always like to have money in case there's problems, or Walmart decides to be Walmart. Again. All those different pieces. That is how we remain faithful. But let's say you begin to slack off in one. You're like, tithe is not as important. I don't really see those benefits from God. I just got to be real honest. I have always seen the benefits of tithing. And it's not like I'm making millions of dollars a year and that's how God blesses me, but I've never wanted for anything. I've never looked at a man and go, I don't know how we're going to pay this bill. I don't know how we're going to feed the kids tonight. You know, God has always provided when we're faithful to him first. And I also would advise being faithful to your bills. Yeah. You know what happens when you're not faithful to the electric bill after the second one? Yeah. No electricity. Which means no charging your phone, which means a whole lot of bad. Be faithful in your offerings. Look, if you make a commitment to God to give something, give it. That's being faithful. You're like, Rob, that's a really broad term. Yes, it is. Be consistent. Be faithful with what God's given you. And then we get to the end of the parable, the not fun part. It says, after a long time, verse 19, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his money. The servant whom he had entrusted with the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more. The master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount. This small amount, 5 talents of silver, the small amount. I know, at that point we're all going, I wish I had that small amount. Yes, me too. So I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Wow, that sounds like a blessing. It sounds kind of like at work when they're like, hey, we're so excited to promote you. By the way, you're going to keep everything you're doing with your old job, and there's more. But you're getting paid more. The joys of responsibility. The servant who had received the 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more. And the master said, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount. Now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. And then the servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. And I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. And look, here's your money back. But the master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. And then he ordered, take the money from the servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Financial accountability. Don't we love that word? We love the fact that every single one of us is going to be held accountable for our finances. And you're like, now, Rob, every time I've heard this parable, this is about my talents, about my gifts, and if I don't use them, God will take them. And they were given money in proportion to their abilities, and they earned money in proportion to their abilities, and yet we like to be like, oh, God's not going to hold me accountable for that. Yes, He is. He holds us accountable for what He has given us. See, the whole point, you look at every single one of these guys. Master, you gave me, and this is what I did with it. God has given us so much, even when you think it is not as much as you would like, you have been given it. Period. And we're responsible to do with it what He's asked us to do. Accountability. Accountability is so difficult because we're like, doesn't really matter here. Really? So, if you don't pay your bills, there's no accountability there, right? Oh, no, see, Rob, I'm just talking about God. Oh, there's no accountability from God. Really? That's an interesting concept because I'm pretty sure God holds us accountable for everything. Not just what He's given us, but who He's entrusted us to. And so if we're not faithful with what He's given us, that includes my family. And so if I'm not faithful in my finances, what does my family know about me? What do people around me learn about me? See, we think accountability is just the end times. When God is sitting on His throne in front of everybody and He's separating us right and left, and we're going, that's when I'll be held accountable. No. Try telling the IRS you don't want to be held accountable this year. Try it. We'll see you in 10 to 15. We are always held accountable for what is given to us, whether it is by men here on earth or God in heaven. But I'll tell you this, if you're not faithful to God in heaven, be fearful of man here on earth. Because the way things begin to be set up is if we don't fear God, we have a whole lot of problems coming to us. See, our accountability is based solely on that faithfulness. It's not about money. It's not about the amounts at all. It's not about your abilities. Look, there are plenty of people who coulda, woulda, shoulda made the NBA. There's plenty of people who should have been that CEO. And there are plenty of people that are not. And there are very few that are. And yet all of us are held accountable for what we're given by God, to do something with it. The point is not the amount. Could you imagine if everything were based on the amount? Like you'd have a ton of people just go work low-income jobs because they don't want to be held accountable. But the truth is, they've still been given something from God. They've been given those finances. They've been given that ability. They're responsible for that. I love what the master says. He goes, oh, you did such a good job with that. Here's more. And they celebrate together. Why? Because they were okay being held accountable. Because guess what? When you're faithful with the abilities you've been given, who cares about accountability? You're not worried about it. Look, my favorite thing is when you get to the end of the semester at school, and you have those ones who have not been faithful in their homework and not been faithful to their projects, and guess what? They're the ones that are scrambling, trying to figure out, okay, can I make this thing up? Oh, teacher. Now look, if you'll just let me redo that one test, it would be perfect. If I could just get the opportunity to go back and turn in some of that homework late, I will take any credit that you will possibly give me, but if you could just give me some credit, I'd just... Why? Because they haven't been faithful. They were given the opportunity, but because they weren't faithful, now they're being held accountable. See, there's rewards and consequences based upon our accountability, based upon our faithfulness. See, here, the one with the 5 and the one with the 2, they get even more. They get more because they were faithful with what was given to them, and they didn't mind being held accountable. And you're like, simple concept. See, financial blueprints are not always so much about the amount, it's about the principle at hand. You know, they tell like teenagers, if you'll save X amount of dollars per year, you'll be a millionaire by the time you're whatever. And that's true, if they could be faithful in that amount all the time. And when you're not faithful, there are consequences. Look at the last guy. Not only does he get reprimanded by the master, he loses what he had. He loses that, what he thought was a little bit. But remember, 15 to 20 years worth of his wages, he hid in a hole. Could you imagine one day, like, you're cleaning out somebody's garage, and you find this little box, and they always complained about not having anything, and then, like, there's 20 years of their paychecks, like, in a box? We would consider them an idiot. But yet, when God has given us so much, and we do nothing with it, does God consider us an idiot? He still loves us. But we lose what we had. And that's why in here, in your bulletin, not everybody got the same amount. Why? Well, let's be obvious. The packages didn't just come with one kind of bill. It came with 5, and so that's why. No. But the other part is, not everybody is given the same amount. Not everybody has the same. It's just kind of how it works. Now, you can always earn more. Side job, higher education. You can definitely get there. And as long as you begin to be faithful with it, it gets much easier. Because if you're faithful and you're held accountable, you're not concerned. I never worry about the IRS because I pay my taxes. But the question is, when it comes to God, are we being faithful with what He's given us? That's where your financial blueprint starts and ends. Whether you want to save millions, save hundreds, buy a bigger house, get a bigger car, do whatever vacation you want, the question is, are you being faithful to God first? And some of you are like, oh, Rob, I'm not even sure about God first as much as I want to give Him my money. I get it. Get it? Learning to tithe is not a fun thing. Learning to trust God with this amount is a whole nother story. But as you learn to trust God and you recognize that what is His and it's not mine, you begin to step back and realize whatever your financial plan is, you trust God, you remain faithful, and the accountability is easy. So here's how we're going to respond today. Some of us really struggle with this concept of money not being mine. You struggle with the fact that you've earned this. The truth is, God gave you the ability to earn this. And you need to be able to give it to Him. And maybe there's some of you that go, okay, I recognize it as God's, but I will spend it how I want to. Okay, that doesn't work. Maybe some of you need to commit to being faithful, not just to tithing, not just to paying bills, but you just need to learn to be faithful with what you've been given. Because you recognize the fact that you're going to be held accountable for this. And so today's response is real simple. You take the dollar bill, or you come and you get some. I know it seems weird throwing money on the communion table, I get it. All you're going to do is you're going to take your dollar. It's simple recognition. This is not mine. This is God's. And maybe it is. It's just a simple commitment to say, God, it's not mine anymore, it's yours. And you lay it down. Or maybe it's a simple commitment to say, God, I'm going to start tithing. I'm going to start being faithful in what you've given me, to recognize not just that it's yours, but I'm going to be faithful in that. Because it's more important that I am faithful than the amount that I have. That's it. And you just want to make that commitment. Or maybe it is a life commitment, where you say the chances of me being held accountable are 100%. And God, I don't want to keep playing this game anymore about whether my life is mine or yours. And you just want to make it His. And you're just going to give it to Him. We just want to invite you this morning to take some space with God. And as they sing this morning, we invite you to come and give that to God. Look, you keeping that dollar bill does not mean you're going to hell. Just going to throw that out there. Because maybe you've already made all those commitments and you don't need to. Maybe it is about you need to set some financial goals. You need to look at what it means for you to earn what you need to earn. use it to write your goals on. Don't neglect that. But this morning as they sing, listen to the Spirit and let him tell you what you need to do with your money. Come this morning. And Father, that is our prayer today. That we give it all to you. That we're faithful with what you've given us. And so, God, we thank you for the response of your people to you this morning. God, may we be found faithful in what you have called us to do. Not because we deserve it, but because you've freely given to us. So God, we just ask that you would use us and remind us to be faithful. In Jesus' name, amen.
Faithfulness. Not the amount, but it's the heart. It's not the little or much, but it's saying, God, whatever I have, it's yours, and you use that, being faithful to him. In your worship folder this morning, you'll find a number of different ways to grow and be faithful. I want to invite you back tonight as we meet together and we worship together, sing songs of praise, and spend some time in prayer. We've been looking at intercession and lifting up one another. You'll notice some other things going on, our Wednesday night enrichment classes. We're doing a survey of the Bible, women's Bible study, and other opportunities for you to grow in your faith and in your walk with Christ. This next weekend, Friday, Saturday, early Sunday morning, is Encounter. Encounter weekend is the kind of the kickoff of our discipleship pathway, and this is the third one that we've held. We've held a pilot and another Encounter weekend, and we still have 4 open spots. Right now we have 62 people participating, and if you are interested in being a part of that Friday night, Saturday, if you'll see me or Pastor Rob or Pastor Chris, it's going to fill up quickly, but we've just got those 4 open spots left. And then you'll notice some elementary ministries. If you have kids, elementary students, there's a family night tonight, Olympics. If you have students, Wednesday night is an open house. And invite every one of you to come, if you have teenagers, to be a part of that. Stand with me, would you? God has called us to be a follower of him, to follow Christ. And as we follow Christ, to have others to come along with us. Once again, it's faithfulness. And so let's go this week in every area of our life. If it be our physical area, if it be our career, if it be our finances, our spiritual aspect, our relationships, let's be faithful. Because we are called to connect people to a divine. May God bless you and give you grace.